Welcome to the PIO podcast, a place for all things public information related for police, fire, EMS, and local government. An open forum to learn, grow, and develop your public information skills. Your host, Robert Tornabene, is a public information officer with over 10 years in the field and 27 years of law enforcement background. In each episode, we will explore different aspects of the public information officer profession. Weekly, we will delve into the field of public information by talking to other PIOs. So sit back and enjoy this episode.
Good morning. Today on the PIO podcast, we have Kevin Maccioli. He is the PIO for the Middlesex County Sheriff's Office. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So, Kevin, how long have you been the PIO for Middlesex County?
So I've been with the Sheriff's Office for just over 9 years. I started in June of 2012. And at the time, this was a one-person press office when I applied for the job. And when I was hired, a second individual was also hired as Director of Communications or Communications Director. And he was here for about maybe 6 months. And then we went back down to one person. And we've kind of gone one person, two people, back down to one. And we're up at two again right now. So it's been 9 years and it's been a great experience.
Now, is your background in communications?
So I was a reporter in Malden and Medford, Massachusetts, which is two communities just north of Boston. Population combines probably about 110,000, somewhere in that range. And so the Malden Evening News was founded in about 1880. It was my hometown newspaper. That's where I grew up. So I got my start there. I actually wrote my first article. I think I was still in high school. And then interned there in college and eventually got a job there after college. But it was one of those places. It was really the editor, myself, and a freelance photographer, and it was a Monday through Friday paper. So you got a lot of experience in a hurry, and I was there for about 10 years before I came over here to the Sheriff's Office. Nice.
And how was that transition going from being on the media side now to be on the law enforcement side?
It went really well, I think. I think one of the things that was really beneficial for me, having worked in a not a small town, but having worked at a small paper like that, is you get exposed to so much and you're covering so much. And a lot of those issues that I would cover, not just public safety, but, education and some of those other things, really in a position like this, in a sheriff's office like ours, have really been beneficial in that I had a background in a lot. I think it was Adam Myrick or somebody, said you got to know everything about your office, or at least you got to know a little bit, about everything in your office. And I think that really kind of benefited me coming in here. Was I had to know a lot about a lot before that, and so that helped with this transition.
Outstanding. We just came out of being completely locked down in the pandemic, and I'm now starting to hear that things they're spiking again in certain communities, which where there's low vaccination rates, it's really bad. As a PIO for your organization that maintains a jail and a house of correction, how did you conduct your messaging during the COVID as the crisis started to evolve? How did you handle that?
So that's a great question, and I think it's something that we had given a lot of thought to, because we knew that we had a number of different audiences that we were going to have to communicate with, all of whom were looking maybe for the same information, but they were going to digest that information in different ways. And so we started out, we're fortunate here in Middlesex in that my sheriff, Sheriff Katusian, our sheriff, his background before he became sheriff was he was an assistant district attorney, and then he was in the legislature. In the legislature, he worked on public health issues. And so as COVID started to pop up, we really, because of his experience working on public health issues in the legislature, really prepped early. and really began our work early. I want to say around early February, Sheriff Katusian was being sworn in as president of Major County Sheriffs of America in DC, and this topic came up. And so we identified kind of who our audiences were going to be. They were going to be the media, obviously, but our employees, our staff, because there was going to be information they were going to be looking for. There was going to be those that were in our custody, because that's going to be important so that they know and understand what's going on. And then there was going to be families. There were going to be loved ones in the community who were going to be concerned both about our staff members who are working and the incarcerated individuals here. And so we identified those audiences, I think, very early. And I think we did a good job of aligning our messaging. We brought in a reporter from our local NBC station, I want to say early March of 2020. And she did a story about our preparations. And so I think that set us on a good path to start to begin to get information out. I think people saw right out of the gate, okay, they're preparing for this. They understand what's coming at them. They know, they've put procedures in place, but they also understand that there's going to be some stuff they don't have answers to right away, but they're going to work on getting them to us.
I saw in that story that one of the things that they covered was that you, knowing that you were going to have to lock down the House of Corrections and the jail from visitors, you went to video conferences to allow them to have virtual visits. I think you guys did a really good job with the messaging on that, because you kind of reduced the anxiety that the families were experiencing.
Right. And so we were able to message right out of the gate pretty well. The video conferencing didn't take off. It ended up being free telephone calls that we were able to switch out from one to the other. But we were able to, because of that eased a lot of nerves for the people in our custody and their family members. The other thing that we did, which was not in that story, but that we did, I want to say before we even had the first case within the jail, was that we had a new family resource and outreach coordinator. And she had just come onto the job, I want to say in January or February. It was just starting to ramp up. And we immediately made her, the sheriff designated her as a point of contact for families. And so if you had a question or a concern, we were putting her name, her telephone number, her email address out there on a regular basis, on our website, via our social media posts, so that people knew if they had a question, they were a family member, they were concerned about a loved one inside, they knew exactly who to call to be able to streamline the information and get it back. The other thing that we did was, before we even had our first case, and it's a worldwide pandemic, so right. It's going to impact you at some point. So before we had our first case with an incarcerated individual, we pretty much had a press release written because we wanted that information when that came out. We wanted to get that into the media first. We wanted the public, family members, we wanted everybody to hear that from us first, and not from, a leak or, a source says. We wanted to make ourselves the official source of information. And I think that's the same no matter what type of, emergency or crisis you're in. You want people coming to you for the information, because you know the information inside out. You know it the best. You know what's accurate, and you want to be able to get that accurate information out in a timely fashion. And so I want to say within a couple of hours of receiving the results of the first positive test, we were able to get it out to the media. We were able to get it out to the staff. We were able to get it out to families, simultaneous. We hit go on a roll call notice to employees, to the media, and to our website within about a 3-minute, boom, 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 so that it was out. Everybody was hearing it at the same time, and they were hearing the same thing.
Nice. And that was going to go to my next question. How did you handle your internal messages to employees?
So we, I want to say in October, December, somewhere in that range of 2019, our deputy public information officer, we had a little bit of a reorganization, and our deputy public information officer at the time took on a new role. And so part of that was, supposed to be presentations and that sort of thing. But what ended up happening is we took on COVID was I worked on the external messages. He was working on the internal messages, and we were on the same path. So, we sit right across from each other, and making sure that the messaging aligned was really critical. Now, you're not going to put the exact same information to both audiences, but you don't want discrepancies. You want it to be, everybody's getting the same basic information, and they're hearing it in kind of the same voice. So little things we'd have to change from one to the other, but align those messages. As a roll call notice went out, within a few minutes, something was going out onto our website. I think we had over 50 or 60. We dedicated a page on our website, created a new page, and started driving everybody there. It was middlesexsheriff.org/COVID-19. And every update that we had, we posted to that page, whether it was changes in bail procedures or it was we had a positive case. We wanted that information out. And then we figured out from there, okay, what's got to go in a press release to media and what's just going to go as a post there, and we'll put it up on social media as well.
Okay, great. And going into a different aspect here, how did you handle the balance between the public safety issues that came up versus the public health issues?
Well, I think you had to look at them as the same thing. You couldn't separate them out. I think, our operational staff and our medical staff really have a great working relationship here at the sheriff's office going back before this. I think they really align, and our mental health staff. So our nurses, our mental health, and our operations all together. And I think that base served us well. But then we also had a outside infectious disease doctor that we were working with. And so she had a lot of input. There'd be suggestions. People would be around at the table, and you'd come up with what the best approach to whatever situation was. We would address it, and then we would message it and why we were doing certain things. At one point we closed 4 housing units within the jail. And the reason we did that was because of the type of housing unit they were. So they were not cells. If for folks that know jails and prisons, you have dorms, and you have pods. A pod is what you would think of with individuals, maybe 2 to a cell. A dorm is a setting where you'd have 60 people just in bunk beds in an area. And then you'd have tiers, which is your old school, like Shawshank Redemption type setting. So we got people out of those dorms because it's harder to control the spread in a place like that, spot like that. So we messaged, hey, we're going to do this, and here's why we're doing it, and that, again, giving people information, empowering them to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and why it's important is only going to make them. We saw this in the public. If people have the information to know how they can protect themselves and help themselves, that's going to create a better health situation, but also creates a safer public safety situation within a jail. If everybody can have that information and be empowered.
Now, with the detainees that you moved from like the dorm style facilities, was there unrest because of that? Or was it just, were you really good about giving the messaging to them to say, hey, this is why we're doing this. It's for your own health and safety.
Yeah, I really have to give our staff here from obviously the sheriff, but then down right to the rank and file officers. I think our officers do a great job on a daily basis of communicating. Our corrections officers, I think they do a fantastic job of communicating, using their communication skills, their interpersonal skills, to relay information, to hear concerns from those in our custody. And I think because of that, I think there was a lot of trust. I think the trust level really benefited us. And I think the officers did a great job of communicating why, okay, we're moving you. You may have been in this unit for a while, but we're moving you. there's a reason for it. And I think our medical staff did that. And I think our command staff did that as well.
Great. Take this off a little bit from the pandemic, but still during the same time period, the George Floyd riots that hit after the Memorial Day weekend. Were you guys impacted at all by that?
So we had some deputies. We are part of, we don't, here in Middlesex and Massachusetts in general, there's 14 sheriffs, the vast majority of whom the primary function is the operation of the jail and house of correction. So for those who don't know the difference, jail, awaiting trial, house of correction, people sentenced. In most states, that's up to about a year. Here in Massachusetts, it's up to about 2.5 years. But we are part of a regional law enforcement consortium called NEMLEC. And so we had a number of deputies at various points who deployed as part of that. We also have an incident command structure that is part of NEMLEC as well. And so they deployed at various points to some locations, but for the majority of that, we were not or I shouldn't say for majority, we were in support of other agencies. So we were not a lead agency in those cases.
Is Middlesex, do they not have a road deputy patrol section?
Yeah, so we have 54 individual cities and towns with police departments. For people who don't know Middlesex County, it's if you know Massachusetts, think of Boston up to the New Hampshire border. So that's us, from Boston to New Hampshire. And then if you go west, you go out to like Hopkinton, where the Boston Marathon starts, and up north again to the New Hampshire border. So I think we touch on 4 counties and the state of New Hampshire. So we're the biggest state. We're the biggest county in the state. We're the biggest county in New England at 1.6 million people. But each individual city in town has its own police department. We also have a number of colleges and universities with their own police departments, the Mass State Police, the MBTA, which is the transit police. So our main function is the jail, but then we support those individual cities and towns with resources they may need, canines for searches, any of that sort of stuff.
How big is Middlesex County, the sheriff's office, and personnel?
It's about pre-pandemic, I want to say we were about 6. And the only reason I qualify that as pre-pandemic is I haven't looked at the numbers, recently. But that's, a mix of civilian and, correctional and deputies, and we have a hybrid medical. So some of the medical personnel are ours, some of them are on contract. We have a Office of Community Counseling, which does like post-release work with individuals. We have a Civil Process Division, which everybody would know what that is, or most people would know what that is. We also have a Warrant Apprehension Unit that's 4 or 5 deputies plus a detective from one of our local PDs that's very active as well. And they'll do not just warrant arrests here, but they'll also go and do renditions out of state and bring people back.
Kevin, I think you cut out. Did you say 600 when you?
Yes.
When you said 600.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that better?
Yeah. No, I just wanted to make sure because it must have jumped a little bit, and I was like,
yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. He said 6, and then I'm like, wait, he had to say 600. Okay.
Yeah. About 600. Sorry.
Okay, great. All right, so let's switch this. I saw something that you did that was when I was doing the research on you to do the interview, is that you conduct training for your recruits on social media. As a PIO, I would gather you're identifying the risk and pitfalls for new recruits. Is that right?
Yeah. So when I came on 9 years ago, for recruit training, we have right now, it's about a 12-week academy for correctional staff. And so what would happen is the training academy staff would actually give the public information presentation. And the training director at the time came to me and said, hey, we do this public information presentation, but I think it might be good if you were interested in coming and doing it instead of us just kind of going through the policy. And so I want to say the last 7 years or so, we've done that. Public information has done that presentation. And what we do is we go through, look, this is the role and responsibility of the public information office. This is why a public information office is important. And it's not just fielding questions that are coming in. It's also providing information to the public that we don't think the public knows, but should know. and highlighting programs and initiatives. But as part of that, we talk about social media, and we talk about our use of social media here at the office, but we also talk about individual use of social media. And I would say, in the 7 years of doing this, the number of people with social media accounts has grown. And the number of platforms that they're on has grown. So at the beginning, 7 years ago, when I would say, okay, who's on, who's on social media, I get a lot of people that would kind of look at me like, what, like a website? Like, I don't have a website. No, how about, all right, how many people have Facebook? How many people have Twitter? How many people, right? And we found a lot of people had Facebook at the time. Now we see a lot more people with Instagram, right? And so we just try and talk to them about what the pitfalls are, remind them, you can't be posting about, work. But we also do other things of, we don't want people to be scared of social media, but we want them to understand, hey, when you put information out there, it's out there for people, and you never know who's going to see that. And so be cognizant of what you're putting out there. And that's good stuff and bad stuff. You may not want to put too much out there about your personal family, that type of information. And so I think now today, a lot more people are cognizant of that when they come in. And it's not them hearing it from us for the first time, but we give them some examples of, hey, this is something that a deputy or an officer in a community in Arizona or Texas or Massachusetts, something that they put up on their social media, and they're regretting it right now. It caused a problem for them. It caused a problem for their agency.
Right.
And you have to be aware of that and just know this is not, even if you have a closed account, it's never really closed. Like you're people are going to see that. So
it's usually the friends of friends or even your friends that just are upset about your comments that you make that usually get you into trouble, or they see your TikTok video. I think that's the biggest cringe I see right now is TikTok. Yeah.
And, our new deputy public information officer who came in last fall, she comes from TV, did about, honestly, about 18 months in television, and then worked in marketing in minor league baseball before she came here with us. And she has a really great feel for social media, not just on finding things on social media, like it being plugged in and understanding what's happening there. And will constantly bring me examples. Hey, have you seen this? Have you seen that? Not pertinent, not here, not us, but things that we can make other people aware of. Right. This is out there, this happened. You gotta be careful. So exactly. Yeah. All right. So another question, that's something else I caught when I was doing your research, is you were part of a group of authors that did an article, Cultivating Change: How the Middlesex Sheriff's Office and the Restoring Promise Initiative Are Transforming Incarceration for Young Men. Can we discuss the background on that? Yeah. So here at the Middlesex Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Katusian's implemented a number of innovative programs for folks that are incarcerated. And, everybody looks at recidivism and how, what's your recidivism number? Well, we looked at the people in our custody. The sheriff is constantly looking at who's here, what led them here. Because if we can help them address the issues that led them here, hopefully they don't come back. And so we initially launched a housing unit for military veterans. It was the first one in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The governor came, helped us open it. And we had a lot of success with it. And fast forward a couple of years, the Massachusetts brought in the Council of State Governments Justice Center to look at the overall criminal justice system here in Massachusetts. And one of the things that was identified within that work was that 18 to 24-year-olds had the highest recidivism rates. It was like, I want to say about 53% if you were coming out of the House of Correction. It was about 55% if you were coming out of DOC. I may have those numbers flipped, but 53 and 55. And Sheriff Katusian, we were already doing some work with a group called UTEC, which is a Lowell-based kind of gang intervention group. And Lowell is, about 100,000 that's in the northern part of our county. And so there were a couple of folks from there that were coming in on a regular basis and trying to work with individuals and help, as they were preparing for release. And so the sheriff and the executive director of UTEC started a conversation and said, you know what, we should be thinking about how we can more formalize a program for these 18 to 24-year-olds and address that. And so we ended up partnering up with the Vera Institute of Justice to help us launch what we call the PACT unit, People Achieving Change Together. And so that report that you reference was I think the 1-year report. So we opened it up, and as part of the anniversary of the unit, we wanted to have a media event. We wanted to bring reporters in, have some speakers, but there was also a desire to put out like a formal document. And so a few people from our team began working with Vera on putting together this report. I think it's about, I don't have it right in front of me, but I want to say it's about 8 authors. And anybody that's tried to write an article or a press release with 8 people, okay, now try and turn that into a report, of maybe 10 pages on this initiative that you're the first in the country, the first jail in the country to do this. There's only one other of these in the country. It's in Connecticut. It's in a state DOC, so there's a few eyeballs on you. But it was an interesting experience of working between government communications and nonprofit communications, advocacy groups, and trying to meld that. But I think in the end, the product that came out, it was a lot of work, but I think the product that came out was really good. And is something for us to, we have it on our website for people to read. But it goes to collaboration. And that's, I know something that you're big about is collaboration,
Yep.
Networking, all that stuff. And that was huge.
Well, kudos to you and your organization, and I'll put a link to that report for the other people if they want to look at it in the show notes so that they can see it. So let's lighten this up a little bit. Let's go to some rapid fire questions here, okay?
Sure.
Your favorite libation?
Well, it's summer in New England, so I'll go with a beer at Fenway, I guess.
Oh, that's my one place I got to get to is Fenway. I want to visit a baseball field in every state, and that's one of the that's like the dream for me to get there.
I was able to take my son to Fenway. My oldest, we had taken him when he was a baby. Maybe he was 11 months, maybe he was a year, but able to take him back for the first time the other day. He's 10 now, and the look on his face of walking up, it's a fantastic place, and yet you definitely got to get there. Now, what's your favorite ballpark that you've been to so far? I'm assuming the Chicago stadiums, but
yeah, well, Wrigley's nice. I mean, it's got a great feel. Of course, it's called Guaranteed Rate Field, but for me, because I grew up, it's always going to be Comiskey.
Comiskey, yeah.
But Candlestick Park School.
Yeah.
Let me think. Oh, the Colorado Rockies Stadium is really neat, and then the Milwaukee Brewers Stadium, which is neat because they've got they can open and close the roof, which is really neat, and they've got a slide in the stadium, which is
in the outfield there. Yeah. If I can give a plug real quick, you mentioned Denver, obviously the All-Star game there. I've been fortunate to be out there a couple of times. I should give a quick plug. The reason I was able to go to Coors Field the first time was the National Institute of Corrections had a jail PIO network, and they were meeting out there in Aurora, and a group of us decided, hey, you know what, Denver's right down the road. Let's go check out a game. And that was both a great networking opportunity, and folks should keep an eye out for that. But also that ballpark for one of the newer ones is just absolutely fantastic.
The view is amazing. See the Rockies in the background. I mean, just amazing.
Yes.
Okay, so name one person, living or dead, whom you'd like to meet and why.
I'm gonna stick with baseball, and I'm gonna say Jason Varitek. I was a catcher growing up. For folks who don't know baseball, Jason Varitek was a catcher for the Red Sox. I want to say the guy caught about 4 no-hitters. But just he was the last captain of the Boston Red Sox. The way that he carried himself and professionalism, and was always about the team, not individual statistics. Just always kind of that always stuck with me, and I think that'd be a great individual to meet.
Great. What's been the most influential resource for your career so far?
We give a plug to one of my local colleagues. Jeremy Warnick is over at Cambridge PD, and I think Jeremy.
Yep.
And Megan Kelly, who's my counterpart at the district attorney's office. I don't feel like there's ever a time where I'm dealing with something where I can't pick up the phone or send a text to one of them and say, "Hey, are you available, for a call? Or can I have this, can we walk through it?" And the three of us actually began, along with two other individuals, non-law enforcement, a local PIO network here originally in Middlesex County, and now it's expanded, and we've got folks from some of the neighboring counties, and just the ability to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, "Hey, I know you've dealt with this in the past. How'd you respond? Or can you give me a suggestion for this? Or have you dealt with this reporter in the past? This is a new reporter. I have no knowledge, no background." It's huge. That networking is huge. And folks like Jeremy, he pulled me into IACP about a year ago, and Megan over at the DA's office. It's great to have those colleagues local, and then some of the folks nationally. You had Adam Myrick on. I met him out at NIC, and every once in a while I'll send him an email. So make those connections and rely on those folks that are smarter than you.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. There's always somebody that's got more experience than you, so reach out and use them. Yep. Okay, Kevin, what gives you hope?
My wife and kids. I think we talk a lot in our type of positions about, that work-life balance. Don't think I've done a great job of that over the years. Hopefully, I feel like, doing a little better lately. But definitely my wife and kids, and, every time you walk through the door and you see their smiling faces, it's, everything's okay. So I'll go with my wife and kids.
Excellent. Final thoughts. Anything you'd like to share?
I'd go back to that networking. I think for particularly, whether you're new in a position like this or you've been around for a while, I think having a network of people, and it doesn't have to be formalized. It can just be those folks that you're on a text chain with. I'll think about Jeremy the other day. I was on vacation. We had an incident here in Massachusetts that was going to impact us. He texted me. I said, "Hey, thanks, but I'm on vacation." And probably about 30 seconds later, he texted my deputy PIO and said, "Hey, I know Kevin's on vacation. If there's anything you need, let me know." And he didn't have to do that. This incident didn't impact him at all. It was outside of his jurisdiction, but, he wanted to make sure that we knew we had a little bit of help. And I think find those folks, rely on those folks, because you're going to need them at some point. And it's better to know them now than meet them in the urgency of a situation. And they're going to make you better. It's going to make you and your organization stronger.
Absolutely. I agree with that. All right. So to close this out, if somebody wanted to reach out and connect with you or get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Sure. So my email address here at the office, it's K and then Maccioli at sdm.state.ma.us. It's a long one. I'll send it to you, Robert. But also, LinkedIn and Twitter, I think are the best ways. Probably LinkedIn.
And I will add all those to the show notes. So don't worry about that. You won't need to send them to me. I've already got them. I'll put them on the show notes. It'll make it easy for people to connect with you. And Kevin, I'm really sorry. I pronounced your name wrong before in the beginning. And
that's fine.
I apologize for that. I should have asked you that question in the beginning before we started. But Kevin, I really appreciate you coming on the show. And if you ever need anything, please feel free to reach out and connect.
Looking forward to it. And, thanks for having me on. It's listening to these, I think I've listened to about 27 of the 28 that I think are out there so far. It's been really informative, really helpful. I appreciate this, particularly at a time when a lot of us have not been able to get in touch, be together in person, and to hear a lot of these voices and their experiences is really helpful, really informative. And I know I've got pages of notes from listening to Katie Nelson and Adam and a whole, everybody you've had on. So thank you. And, if you're ever out here in Boston, please look me up and hopefully we can get to Fenway.
That would be outstanding. Thank you. And that's Kevin Maccioli from the Middlesex County Sheriff's Office. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to contact the show, please email us at the piopodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified of the latest episode. If you are listening on a platform that allows reviews, please give us a review. We appreciate any review, good or bad. It helps us improve on each episode. Until next time, be safe.